Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable video game from a particular moment in their life. You could say it's a show about what makes video games special to different people. On the show, you'll hear me talk to my guest as much about what made playing that game meaningful or incredibly memorable as we will get into the context of how and when they had this time that made this impression on them. A little bit of housekeeping up top is that anything that my guest or I plug today on the show, you're going to be able to find in the show notes of this podcast episode. So whether you're watching on YouTube or listening in your favorite podcast catcher, if you scroll down to the show notes or go to the episode, you're going to see a nice list of possibly a podcast or a social media leak or maybe a couple Patreons from a couple video game podcasters. We'll have to see. That's pretty much it. Oh yeah, all I want to say before we get into this episode is which I'll have some more to share. Is that the big plug that I'm going to talk about right now is two pronged. On the Patreon over at Super NPC Radio, where all of our bonus video game content is held, we are about to start our Control Games Club. So if you're listening to this episode the week that it comes out, episode 234 of Call Me By Your Game, episode 1 of the Control Games Club, where we go through that game in a book club style format, chapter by chapter, should be airing that Friday, January 17th. Because of the fires in LA, we've had to move our recording schedules around, but I think we're going to be able to get that first episode out before Friday, and if not, it'll just start the following week. That's available at the $5 DJ Toad tier on our Patreon over at Super NPC Radio. And then I also am going to be doing a bonus every single month for this podcast that I've been doing for a while. Last year, the co-op series covered sequels. This year, we are covering indie games. And I haven't gotten our guest today on a specific episode, but I'm probably just going to have him on one or two because I know this person loves indie games. That'll do it for the housekeeping. Kind of a heavy one today, but we'll get into all of the actual run of show, and I'll finally introduce my guest for today's episode. And I'll introduce him in a second, but I've got a couple of things I want to say. Featured on Call Me By Your Game episode 89, where he brought on Diddy Kong Racing, episode 207, where he listed his top 10 favorite games of all time on part 6, co-op episode 17 on Metroid Dread, which actually comes out on this feed in 2 weeks, co-op episode 26, Mario Kart Double Dash, and co-op episode 34, Ori and the Blind Forest. Please welcome co-host of the Super Gamer Boys and Culture Master, Adrian Holmes. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
How you doing, Connor, man? It's great to be back. I got a little bit of a track record, huh? I didn't realize I was been on that much stuff.
And that's just the Call Me By Your Game stuff that you've been on here at the network. You have also been featured on our old Games Club series, like the Zelda series and Metal Gear Solid. You're on plenty of Video Games, a Comedy Show episodes. But today, most of the time when I have a recurring guest back on to do another solo episode, I forget to actually look up what episodes they were. And I had just enough time to where I actually went overboard and probably didn't need to list all of them. But it's kind of your resume here on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of flabbergasted. I didn't realize that it was just my career was my NPC career was so storied. Like,
dude,
I've been through eras with you guys. I feel like
you really have. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm going to leave space for you to talk about, a plug and talk about yourself a little bit too. The listeners are probably familiar with you, but it is just so funny to think that someone who I've never met in person, that I've done so many, over at least 10 recordings with throughout time, that we've been doing shows together for over 3 years at this point. Just crazy stuff.
Yeah, man, we've been down a long road. I wish I could say, I'll just pop down to LA one day and see all you guys, but maybe, in a little bit.
Yes, a
I
little
might be
bit of a
dating the
rough time to
episode,
do
but
that.
there are some things going on in LA at the time.
Yes,
at this
for
current
sure.
time.
Yeah, we'd love that. We had friend of the show who I think you've done a few podcasts with, our friend Roxy Polk. She visited right before Thanksgiving this year, and meeting Roxy in person was crazy too, because I've been doing shows with her for about as long as I've been doing shows with you and Garrett, and it was just like seeing that person outside of a screen and being like, well, this is exactly who I thought she was really cool. So someday we're going to make it happen.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, dude, you're here. I mean, I introduced you as the co-host of the Super Gamer Boys. But Adrian, before we get into, a lot of like detailed nitty-gritty about video games today, what do you want to share with yourself or with the listener about yourself, and what do you want to plug today?
Um, well, as Connor has so kindly stated, I am one half of the Super Gamer Boys podcast. We usually go over the previous week's game news and kind of give our little humble opinion on what we think about the major headlines for the week, and we'll talk about what we've been playing and read listener letters, etc. Just kind of really, it's an excuse for me and my co-host Garrett to kind of hang out
Yes.
and talk about video games, so we can slot that time because you don't have a whole lot of people in your regular day-to-day life that you can really talk shop with, so it's just nice for us to have that time. Um, but as you also said, I am a huge proponent of independent games or indie games,
Hmm.
as a lot of people may know. And I've been fortunate to be in contact with a lot of indie game developers. I've been able to, some as big as the creators of the Playdate. Some people
Yeah.
at Panic I've been able to chat with because I covered their console when it came out, which is still rad to this day. That's probably the biggest thing that I've done. I'm just a champion for creativity in games, and honestly, I think that the game that we're going to talk about today is definitely a big part of the inception for that. So,
Yes. I love
yeah.
it, dude. That's great. And yeah, like I was teasing earlier, I mean, off pod, I'll probably be texting you because I've got pretty much my schedule set for the year. There's some wiggle, I like to leave some wiggle room throughout the year for the co-op series. And since we're covering indies, because I might change my mind at a certain point, but definitely going to get you on at least one of those. We were talking about, did you plug where to find the Super Gamer Boys, by the way? You may have
Oops,
already done that.
I did not, but I can
Okay.
now. So we normally record Monday nights at 7 to 7:30
Mm.
on twitch.tv/ the Super Gamer Boys. And you can also find all our content in VOD form. And we also co-stream on there sometimes too at youtube.com/
Yes.
Super Gamer Boys.
I love it. Well, thank
Mhm.
you, dude. One other, I meant to give another disclaimer a lot earlier on the episode, especially because we were talking about the LA fires. Like, I just wanted to say that, like, I am, like, my particular area where I am has not been affected immediately. The air quality is really bad, so I'm a couple things. A, I'm out of town right now. So if people are watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm in a different space than I normally record podcasts. If you're listening, you might be able to tell that there's a little more echo. So I'm also not in that space. Where I am at is my childhood home in Modesto, where Adrian, I actually have recorded one episode here before, and it was the first episode that I did with our dear friend Eddie Martin back in, I think it was over
Ah.
over Thanksgiving break of 2019.
You guys would just both happen to be in the same place, same time.
Yes, he lives here, and I was
Hmm.
visiting for the holiday and had started recording my show, and I was like, dude, when I'm there, especially back when we only recorded in person before the pandemic hit, I was like, dude, we got to get an episode in, and we were truly sitting like exactly here. So all is good for me. I should probably include some ways for people if they're interested in helping out or making donations to like mutual aid foundations in LA. I should include something like that in the show notes. So keep an eye out, listener. But I'm okay, and just because I'm in a different location doesn't mean I'm in harm's way. Without wasting any more time, Adrian, we're going to talk in just a second about some more recent history of yours with video games. But before we do, will you please introduce the game we're going to talk about on the main event later and call me by your game?
All right, I sure can. The game that we're talking about is the PlayStation 1 original. The I guess Sony's first ever rhythm-based game, and that is PaRappa the Rapper for the originally released on PlayStation 1 and re-released on the PlayStation Portable
Yes.
and re-released in 4K on PS4.
Yes. I can't wait, dude. This happens every so often where someone brings on a game. I think actually our previous episode, someone brought on a game where I was like, how have we not discussed this yet? This game means so much to so many people and it's so special. So I'm pumped to talk to you about Parappa a little later. But let's dive into some recent history with gaming. We talked about your history in general, your deep history on your episode 89 back in 2021. So if people want to hear about, sort of the lead up to where you were at that time, they can listen to that
Hmm.
episode. But I would like to hear from you, Adrian, since it's been about 3 years since we did your first episode. Um, have you is there been any sort of change in your gaming habits that you'd like to point out, whether it be genres you're interested in or the type of developers that you have been following? I just like it. I don't even know where the rest of that sentence is going, but I'm going to pose that question to you.
So the biggest change for me, as far as gaming habits goes, I have really started to lean more into portable experiences.
Mm,
So whether that is older consoles that are handhelds and portable, or if it's the Nintendo Switch, I even had a Steam Deck for a little while.
ooh,
That unfortunately didn't stay around because I didn't use it as much as I thought I would.
hmm,
Um, but anything that I can take with me is my much preferred um, style of play these days.
yes,
I feel like, and as with a lot of us, right? I'm not home very much. I'm either out at work or I'm running an errand or I'm at a friend's place or an event or something like that. So I don't have a lot of time to sit at home and dig into something like I used to.
hmm,
And that's a really big reason why games like, the Final Fantasy 16 or 7 Rebirth, I haven't really had a chance to dig my teeth into that much because it requires that big commitment and it's only on that stationary PlayStation 5 platform. Um, so I'm really been digging portable stuff because it lets me chip away at things here or there wherever I am. And I can also play it at home if I have some downtime at home. So I'd say that'd be the
mm,
biggest change for me in recent history.
okay.
Um,
Do
and that
you?
also includes between now and then, or then last time and now,
Yeah.
my little playdate console, which I just
Yes.
mentioned a little bit before. Um, I freaking love that thing. It is, for those who are uninitiated, I'll make it brief. It is a tiny yellow Game Boy-like system that hosts games that are made only by independent developers, and they are basically made in a 1-bit that presents itself as an 8-bit style. And that constraint makes developers have to get really creative about how they
Yes.
make their games. And some of the stuff on that little console is just mind-blowingly good. And if you are a fan of creative games, weird games, out there ideas, that is definitely somewhere I would point you to go. You can take it with you. It's super small, fits in your pocket like no, like super easy. There's no reason you can't have it on you at all times. But yeah, portable gaming I think is my biggest change. Sorry,
Okay. No,
in
no,
the
no.
woods.
No, that was awesome. You've given me so much to ask about. For you, like I feel like for me, portable gaming is something that like I idealize more, that I wish I had more opportunities to do. I've definitely had jobs too in the last like 4 or 5 years, whether it be like literally an acting job working on set for several days in a row, or it be working a like I used to work for this company named Core, and it was like right when vaccines started to roll out for COVID that I was just out of the house a lot and traveling a lot. So I had like a heavy DS era in that time. I was playing Game Boy.
Mm, mm.
I talked to a friend about this too, who was on my show recently, but he directed a series that I got to act in, and I ended up playing through all of Super Mario Land 2, Six Golden Coins
A
on
classic.
basically in my dressing room. So I love the idea of that so much. I just don't. I'm kind of in an opposite scenario right now where I have been at home a lot more than I expected the last couple of years. So
Hmm.
I love that. Do you take public transportation or are you driving?
I'm driving,
Okay.
but I have periods of like downtime, where my lunch breaks or
Yes.
sometimes my job will get a little slow and then I'll have time if I'm caught up with all my tasks that I can
Yeah.
sneak a little bit in there. Don't tell. But yeah, and then I'll be out and about at events or like a function for a friend or something like that, and then I'll sneak away and go find a little corner and maybe plug away at something for a little bit. Um, Really for me though, and I mean, I guess not to get like psychological, but I like to have at least something on me,
Hmm.
as far as like a console or something
Yeah.
like that, just to have like that little peace of mind that like, if this situation starts to get boring or if it starts to stress me out, social anxiety, I have, something in the back pocket that I can kind
Yes.
of, whip out and disappear into a little different world for a while. So
Yes. In a completely different way, you have that thing on you at times.
at all times, yes,
Yes.
I
Have
keep
you?
that thing on me.
I
Yes.
mean, you were talking about the play date a little bit, so I'm sure you've had that on your
Oh yeah.
person. Has there been a console? What's been the recent one? Has it been the play date that's been with you most often recently?
It has been the one that's been with me the most often just because of its size.
Yes.
Um, it's nice to have, and it's pretty fun to kind of just take out and let people play with just
Hmm.
to see their reactions to it. And they're like, "Oh, that's pretty
Oh,
neat."
for
Like I've never
sure.
had anybody that says this is kind of weird.
Especially with the
Um,
crank feature, like
yeah.
that's so unique.
hmm Nobody's seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Every time I bring it out, they're like, "What do you mean it has a crank on it?" And I have to show it to them. But right now, Connor, honestly, I'm in my DS/ PSP era.
Dude, I mean,
I've
is
just
there a better
been,
era to be in?
it's kind of hard to match up to them.
Yes.
Those are two titans you're trying to go up against right there. Um, but I have been carrying those two around in tandem in
Ooh.
my bag, just because they are just. I mean, you quite literally between the two have thousands of hours of games that you can play.
Hmm.
You can pick any number of game and you'll have an experience that's completely different from whatever you were gonna play before. And just it's just perfect. Like all the games are designed to just be played for a little bit, or you can really dig into them with RPGs.
Yes.
And both of them have a sleep mode. So
Yes.
so if you need to stop for a second, you just put it in sleep mode and come back to it later, exactly where you left off.
Dude,
Um, yeah,
huge.
portability is king, man.
I love that. I know that even within the last year, you and I have talked about handheld gaming a lot, especially because on Video Games a Comedy Show in 2024, we did both the Nintendo DS Space Solace, which is our fantasy draft slash desert island scenario episodes we do, and at the end of the year, we did a PSP episode. And I still haven't gotten a PSP, but Adrian, I have
I
looked at
was
so
urging
many.
you, man.
Dude, I've looked at so many eBay auctions. I've just honestly been like, I don't, because I'm looking, I know we talked about it. I'm looking for a white 3000, but I'm trying to find, I think you gave me the heads up that if you can buy like a Japanese one because they're region free, but
hmm
I want to say Circle and X are switched.
They're switched, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Confirm is Circle in Japan.
Yes. So I'm like, how
hmm
much will that be confusing to me? Can I just get that version of the console and will it be fine? I guess I might see because I might have to get that one.
You could. I think you'll live. And
Yeah.
if anything, I'm sure there's some like custom firmware out there that somebody will make that you can just switch them back.
Yes.
So
Yes, that makes sense.
if it comes down to that, I think you'll be just fine. But
Okay,
yes,
cool.
I urge you to get a PSP, especially if you, I don't remember if you said you ever had one before.
I had one for a month when it like the
Mm,
first year it came out, and I just made a horrific mistake of getting rid of it because the baseball game I got on it wasn't very good. So
that's right.
just
That's
what a
right.
tragic tale of gosh, of all things to try to play on the PSP. All the amazing experiences it offered. I have two more questions for you, Adrian.
Shoot.
Segment. The first of which is there a game that you've been playing recently, whether it be a return to an old one or a brand new title that you'd like to highlight right now?
Mm. Good question. A game that I have come back to recently.
Or it could be a brand new game. I was just kind of giving you either option there.
Oh, okay. Um, a new one that I or have been picking up recently is Pizza Tower.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I finally played I started playing Pizza Tower. It came to the Nintendo Switch recently, and I've been waiting forever for it to come out because I'm like, there's no way a game like this is not coming out on a platform like
Yes.
Switch. And I adore that game. It is
Ooh.
so good. Um, so a little backstory, I am a huge Wario fan. So WarioWare, Wario Land, Wario World on the GameCube, all the
Yeah.
Wario
Oh my
games, I
gosh,
think,
Wario World.
yes. All those games I think are just phenomenal titles. And Pizza Tower is like an unabashed love letter to those games, to the
Yes.
Wario Land games. You barrel through stages just like you do in Wario Land. It's all momentum based.
Mm,
It's overly animated to just perfection. It's such a beautiful game in its weird, wacky style. And
ah,
yeah, you can it wears its inspiration not veiled at all on its
yes.
sleeve of Wario Land games. And just the excuse me, the mechanics of it where you're needing to rush through the level as fast as possible to
Mhm.
get the best score and then have to get back to the end of or to the beginning. Um, it's just it's so well done. I'm having a blast with it. I'm not extremely
Awesome.
far into it, but what I've seen so far, I already know that this is going to be a quality experience. So
That
I'm
rules.
yeah.
I often have the experience of finally getting to play a game that I've been looking forward to for a while, like this one for you. And it's always nice when A, the game scratches the itch that you were hoping it was, but B, just being able to finally do it is just
Mm-hmm.
so nice. I'm doing that right now with Stardew Valley. I've started playing for the first
Woo.
time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look, I'm 12 days into the 12 days into Conrad, excuse me, is 12 days into his farm on Leotin in Stardew Valley, but it's a similar thing where I've been holding it out for a rainy day for a while, and even though I've had access to it for a while, and it's just nice that it hits the way you want it to, kind of like Pizza Tower for
Yes.
you.
You are about to go down a rabbit hole, my good friend,
Yes.
and you won't be back for a while with Stardew Valley. So
Yes.
enjoy your time.
Dude, I'm already just like loving it. So, the final question I have for you is I'd love to know what's a game that you have that's caught your eye that you're looking forward to playing. This could be a game that's already been out for a while that you just haven't got to, like Pizza Tower was, or it could be one that's on the horizon that has your interest.
Easy. Monster Hunter Wilds.
Okay, there we
I'm a
go.
massive Monster Hunter fan. I've been playing them
Oh,
since they came to the PSP. And yeah, that game looks amazing. I have unfortunately been the victim of solo Monster Hunter. I don't know a whole lot of people haven't known a whole
yes.
lot of people that have been playing Monster Hunter, and I know it's the most fun when you get to play with the squad.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I actually got to do that consistently was Monster Hunter World, but that was because everybody was playing
Yes.
Monster Hunter World. It felt like Monster Hunter World felt like the first time it broke through, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. The series
Yes.
like finally made an impact to the mainstream, and people realized what it was. And then um, Rise, I got that for a little bit, and then that kind of fell off as far as the squad. So I, went ahead with that one on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Also a great game. Um, but I am really looking forward to Monster Hunter Wilds. It looks so good. The new monsters look so well done, and I
Yeah.
can't wait to play that
What's
game.
is there a projected release date for that right now this year?
I believe they say, it moves around so much. I can honestly do a quick Google,
Yeah,
but
for
I
sure.
want to say it's February or March, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
One of the handful of games we actually know is releasing this year at the moment.
Right. They say that it is projected for, yeah, February 28th.
Okay.
So the border of February and March.
All right. Awesome. Dude, well, whether it's like it's your Discord for the Super Gamer Boys or at Super NPC Radio, there's got to be somebody playing that. So hopefully we can get a little squad together when that actually
Fingers
comes out.
crossed, man.
Yes. Well, Adrian, I could talk to you a lot more about games in detail, but we're going to go ahead and hit a quick break before we, get into all things PaRappa the Rapper. So I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game. Connor McCabe still here with the great Adrian Holmes. Adrian, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
You betcha. Here we are. Finally, we're going to get into the main event today. You have brought on PaRappa the Rapper. And before we dive into your personal history, Adrian, I'm going to do a little bit of table setting for this game. Just some brief contents for the listener in case they happen to not be familiar with it. But also for you, if you want to jump in at any time and include an anecdote or a piece of context that you're like, oh, actually, Connor, it's important to know the game plays like this, or Jammer Lammy is X. Feel free to do that at any time.
Oh, dude, you're one step ahead of me. I was definitely going to bring up Lammy. Don't you worry.
I love it. Well, without further ado, I'll just get into a couple paragraph monologue that I have prepared. So here we go. PaRappa the Rapper is a rhythm video game developed by Nana Onsha. Is that how you pronounce that?
Nana Onsha. Yep.
Okay, Nana Onsha. And published by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PlayStation. It was originally released in Japan in 1996 and worldwide in 1997. Created by music producer Masaya Matsuura in collaboration with Rodney Greenblatt, the game features a unique visual design and rap-based gameplay and is considered to be the first true rhythm game. It was ported to the PSP in 2006 in the celebration of its 10-year anniversary, and a remastered version of the original game was released for the PS4 in 2017 for the 20th anniversary, both of which Adrian already brought up for us. This game was well received by critics who praised its music, story, animation, and gameplay, and though its short length was criticized by some. Several publications list it as one of the best and most influential video games ever made, and it spawned two follow-up titles, a guitar-based spin-off titled Jammer Lammy, and I gotta credit Michael Hearn as the first person I ever heard say that title years ago, released in 1999 for the PlayStation, and a direct sequel, PaRappa the Rapper 2, released for the PS2 in 2001. The game was also influential in setting the basic template for the rhythm game genre, including franchises such as the Bimani and Harmonix games. Homeboy, are there any other little details that you want to include about this game before we jump into your time with it?
Good question. Good question. I think that's a good overview for everything. I guess just to give people a little bit of a clearer picture of how it works.
Yeah.
I know everybody kind of gets the rhythm game, but there are different iterations of it.
Totally.
This one is definitely more like a call and response
Yes.
type of deal. So the for lack of a better term, lead or instructor on the song, or the boss of the stage,
Yes.
will set out a pattern of words attached to button presses, and you as PaRappa need to mimic the pattern that the boss puts out in order to pass the stage or to continue on and
Yes.
making progress in the stage. There are a few Easter eggs that we may get into as far as gameplay is concerned.
Ooh.
But yeah, that's the base of the gameplay.
Okay,
of the
cool.
game.
Yeah, it to even give maybe some visuals to what you were saying, or to describe the visuals is, yeah, you've got the lead, the boss of whoever is sort of starting the call before your response, and it's up top on the screen, I want to say usually, or if not all times in this one, and as the lyrics are going by, it's showing you I think, how many buttons does it use? Does it use more than the face buttons?
It uses the face buttons and L and R.
Okay, cool. So yeah, those will be going across the screen. But thank you for adding that additional a specification for this particular rhythm context. Let's get into your personal time with it. The first question I want to ask you is, do you remember how this game came into your life? Was it one you sought out, or did it just show up magically?
I remember it like it was yesterday, dude. So it was Christmas time. I want to say it was I was young. I want to say it was 1996 6.
Mm.
And my cousin from that had moved up here from Texas, he had gotten a PlayStation for Christmas that year.
Oh.
And he he lived in the basement of my aunt and uncle's house,
Hmm.
and I guess my quote unquote aunt and uncle, they were like distant, but I went down into his room and his PlayStation was there, and I had never seen one before up until that, like in real life. I had never seen one
Okay.
before up until then, and I remember going in there and he had the demo disc. Um, and one of the games on there was, well, one of the games he was playing Intelligence Cube when I was there. And then one of the other games on the disc was PaRappa the Rapper.
Okay.
And I remember getting to play and I picked that game and that magical door blew wide open.
Dude.
And I had never seen anything like that before. I didn't know that games could do that or could look like that, could play like that, anything. So it
Mm.
was just like such an eye-opening experience to just see that and experience that kind of game. And honestly, I think that was one of the things that kind of set me on the track to be like, I need to look into getting one of these PlayStation things. How do I do this?
Yes.
Um, I was terrible at it, of course, because I'd never seen anything like this before, but I
Yeah.
wanted to keep playing because it was so interesting. Um, and yeah, I mean, over time, I eventually got my own PlayStation, and I had my copy of PaRappa, and then it came to PSP, and I had a PSP, got that, and got
Yes.
PaRappa for it. This is my copy right here.
Oh,
Um,
dude.
uh, it's
I
my
love it.
for the listeners, I'm holding up a copy of the PlayStation Portable version, which
Oh,
is, in my opinion, the best version of the game. I can nerd out about why, but I do want to, save for time.
sure.
Um, well, I mean, the PSP one, it's the first time the game was in widescreen.
Hmm.
The original was 4:3 on PS1, so you got extra room just to kind of take in the visuals. And because PSP had online and had access to the PlayStation Store, you got to download remix versions of the songs.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, so there were different music backing tracks, and for one of the stages, or I think a couple of them, they had songs or they had backing tracks from its sister game, from PaRappa's sister game, Jammer
Oh,
Lammy.
no way.
Yeah, as backing tracks for PaRappa songs. So that was awesome back in the day. I
Dude.
still have the DLC on my memory stick.
Huge.
Um, but yeah, no, the PSP version is the definitive way for me to play the game.
Yes.
Um, and then they also brought it out on PS4 as for for the 20th anniversary. It was 4K, and it looks fantastic, but it doesn't play the best, unfortunately, just because of the modern TVs. They have a little bit of a delay,
Yeah.
um, so it's hard to get those perfect notes like it used to be, and it still runs on that original code, so
Mm.
it's looking for you to hit the note perfectly, and it
Yes.
doesn't account for that delay.
Okay.
Um, so that unfortunately kind of was its Achilles heel, but it looks so good. It looks
I bet.
amazing.
Nice and
Um,
crispy.
yes, but yeah, that game kind of opened the door for me to see that games could be like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly had, a colorful, whimsical game because I played Nintendo games growing up.
Hmm.
But this is kind of cool for me to see that, oh, other people do this too.
Yeah.
Like these guys at Sony, they do this too. And then when you get a little older and you realize, oh, Sony does games like PaRappa, but they also make stuff like Metal Gear. Like they
Hmm.
do all of it. You can like both things. And
Yes.
that's really what kind of opened the door for me to be like, you can like everything, actually. You don't
Yeah.
have to be super serious, um, grown up action man. You don't have to only like the colorful, adventurous, whimsical games. You can like the whole gambit if you want to. And that has influenced me. This game has influenced me to this day
Yeah.
to be able to embrace any kind of game experience that I find interesting, no
That's
matter what it looks like, what it plays like, who it's
yeah.
for. Yeah, so I owe that in pretty good deal to this game.
That's really powerful. Is that something that has found its way into other, I guess, things you enjoy your life outside of games? Like maybe just like help shape your taste, or
I would say so.
yeah,
Yeah, I think, well, because games for me are probably the biggest media product that
yeah,
I consume.
hmm
So it would make sense that my willingness to try anything there would kind of bleed its way over into other things that I interact with.
yeah,
So whether that be, movies or music or, um, experiences even.
yes,
I've been a lot of places that a lot of people have not been to or wouldn't want to go to. I've traveled a lot, been around the world almost. And I think that being that open is due, quite honestly, to growing up with that line of thinking of, oh, I can do whatever I want, actually. I don't
yeah.
have to just want like or be one thing.
hmm
Um, yeah. So
That's really
yeah.
cool. It sounds like it can just lead to a little like open-mindedness in so many ways in your life. Probably even outside of just like the media that you consume and enjoy
Hmm.
too. So it's fun when something like a game can do that. Uh,
Hmm.
I would love to rewind just a little bit back to when, your earliest interactions with this game. You were saying that you had never really seen anything like this. What was it that captured you about the game early on? Was it the art? Was it the rhythm nature of the game? Do you remember?
It for sure was the art first,
Mm.
because it was cartoony and I was way into cartoons at that time. I was still like 5 or 6. Um, but and I am still way into cartoons. I shouldn't have said it like that. That sounded dismissive. But because it was cartoon based, I
Yes.
was familiar with that, and I wanted to see what that was about. And then you realize that it was music, and then you kind of my cousin helped out and showed me exactly how things worked with the game. But I think all that together was really the thing that kind of hooked me into wanting
Okay.
to explore this new thing, this new experience that I've had with games.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, sort of like the sum of the parts where like it
Hmm.
all contributed to you being interested.
Yeah, for
Cool.
sure.
I love that. I can relate. The only thing I'll really share about my history with this game is I can totally relate to being captured by it and sort of like mystified of like, what is this thing? And I think for me too, it was like sort of the flimsy paper style of the characters
It
because
looks so odd.
so odd and just unique for the time. And also,
Hmm.
I would come to like Paper Mario, but that wouldn't come out for 5 or 6 years after this.
Right.
So, um, but I remember being captured by it. I remember I played this at one of my friend's house. I did not have a PlayStation 1 growing up. And neither did my best friend. My best friend Eddie didn't have a PlayStation 1 either. But I had two friends who did. And the friend who I played this game at his house and a few others is my friend Tyler Caldwell, who I grew up
Hmm.
with in Modesto, lived in the same neighborhood. And I remember going to Tyler's, and there were games that we would play at his house that like I could wrap my head around, like the Bugs Life movie game I really liked. The original Rayman, or the
Oh,
port to the PS1. I remember playing Spyro the Dragon, which captured me.
another classic. Yep.
But he had this game too, and you were talking about being bad at the game. Adrian, I don't think I've ever gotten past like I think I failed as fast as you can. I don't know how quickly you can lose to the onion karate guy, but I lost as quick as you could.
That I mean that tracks. I feel like I was definitely around there when my first go around.
Sure.
But once somebody, I'm sure your friend eventually like kind of showed you the ropes and
Maybe,
showed you how to
yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I wish I could remember, but
but yeah, I mean it's almost, I feel like, expected, right?
yes,
Because they make it so easy to just start back up and try again because they know, a lot of people are not going to get this the first time around. This is a new concept.
totally.
Um, Rhythm games in general were kind of a new concept, I think, I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure we've had games that were music based. Like I think Mario Paint was before this, and it had a music creator in it.
Yes.
But having the gameplay be based around interacting with the music, I think this was one of the first to do that. So it was absolutely a new concept for a lot of people. So
Yes.
you and I we were meant to be bad at it. There
Yeah.
was nothing like it before.
Yeah. No shame in being bad at PaRappa your first few go rounds.
Right.
So thinking about your time with the game as well, do you remember once you got it, like was it something that you would just play from time to time? Did you sink your teeth into it? I know we're looking pretty far back in our histories, but does anything come to mind?
I remember yeah, I got it. And it's in storage right now.
Hmm.
Um I got it, and this was around the time when I got my PS1 a little bit late. So I
Hmm.
was able to get a lot of the games that had come out already, like all of the All Stars.
Yes.
So I was playing PaRappa in rotation with a lot of the other stuff
Oh,
that was already
cool.
out. So the Spyros, the Crashes, the you know
I
Metal
don't know,
not Metal
Tomb
Gear, that was a little
Raider.
bit later too. Tomb Raider, yeah, that was another
Okay.
one. But I did eventually finish the game,
Mm.
and it was just as rewarding as I thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
just because of it was hard back in the day because you didn't really you weren't really used to it. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, being able to lock in as a youngin and sit down and go, oh, okay, I got the time. It's
Yes.
then this,
Hmm.
and then finally getting to the end and seeing the end, and yeah,
That's
I
cool.
I have a lot of history with this one, and I finished it, and then when I got my PSP and found out that they were bringing it to PSP, I absolutely picked it up because I
Yes.
was like, what do you mean that I can play it anywhere I want to go now?
Yeah. Um,
And
Tying
yeah.
into a lot of like your what we talked about earlier today was just like your like passion and love for on the go and handheld gaming.
Hmm.
It was there then too. For you, like since this is a game that you have revisited over time, both when the PSP version came out, you told me that you played through it again before this recording. What would you say if you had any takeaways from revisiting it over the years, whether it be an appreciation for the part of the game or something that sticks out to you?
um yeah, actually, uh in playing it again, and this is going to be really inside baseball, um but the plot of the game is Parappa trying to win the heart of the girl that he likes, as well as figure out what it means for him to be a man
Okay.
and to find confidence in himself.
Hmm.
Um, and I know that a lot of people overlook that part because everybody remembers the rhythm gameplay, but
Yeah.
there are a good little hefty chunk of cutscenes in the game that,
Yeah.
have a good bit of story to them. And one thing that sticks out to me is, and I'm gonna say spoilers,
Go for it.
because this is a really big moment, and it's at the end, and it's really impactful for me when I sat back and thought about it a second time.
Hmm.
Um, Most of the game, you are following along after somebody who says something or gives out the call for you to respond. Um, but the very last set of notes or bars in the game sees you as this is like the big wrap up, ending song. So all your
Yes.
former bosses are there and they're cheering you on. Um, and you're going through the beginning of the stage as normal, but then it switches, and suddenly Parappa himself becomes the lead. And
All
they don't tell
right.
you that. And you get thrown into it unbeknownst to you, and you have to figure it out. And now you're leading,
Yes.
Everybody else, you're the call now. You're not the response.
Wow.
And it's like a allegory or like a metaphor of like you've made it. You're at the
Yes.
plateau now. You're where you want to be. You're in
Students become the
control of
teacher
your
in a
destiny.
way.
You become the teacher. Yes. And I thought
Interesting.
that was so cool. And it's so subtle. Like you wouldn't really it could pass you by if you don't really
Yes.
kind of take it in. But and it's such a small thing, but when you really kind of sit back and look at it, it's like, man, that's a nice way to like tie the story into the gameplay at the very
Definitely.
end to kind of show that the journey you've been on and now you're at the end and you're where you want to be.
That is a really nice touch. And does he also win the heart of the girl who he loves, which I
He
believe is a
does.
flower?
He does. Yeah, Sunny.
Funny, funny.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I said that as if I didn't look it up before the game, before there was this recording. Um, I love that.
Yeah.
Adrian, I want to dive into a little bit more of the context of when you would have been playing this game. And I'd like to start by doing a little scene painting of you sort of describing to me the room where your PlayStation 1 that you would have been playing this game, maybe your first time, or that first go around with it. Like, what was that room like? Sort of walk me through that.
All right. So it was a quote unquote two-story house.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a few blocks away from where my family and I lived here in town.
Mm.
And you would go downstairs below the main floor of the house. On the side of the house, there was a set of stairs that would go down, and you would walk through the initial basement part where they had the washer and dryer down there. And then you go back towards the back of the house, and there
Hmm.
was a door. And you would open that door, and it would be the door to my cousin's room.
Yeah. Oh, so
And you
that's
would
where you
walk,
played this for the most part.
yes, for the first,
Oh,
yes, for the first
okay.
time. And as soon as you come in, his TV was in the corner,
Hmm.
and the PS1 was next to it, sitting on like a little bookshelf or something like that.
Yes.
And that was the first time I came in, and I said, "What is that?"
Yes. Yes.
And pretty much, I mean, it was a small little room. It was a bed in the middle of the room. Um, you can tell how much this imprinted on me.
I mean,
Uh,
even you telling this for the audio only listeners at home, you can tell you were really looking back because you closed your eyes while you were looking back in time.
well, I was trying to get a visual. I had to
Yes.
recall
Yes.
some stuff. Um, but yeah, I remember that, and I remember the little TV that it was hooked up to, and the demo disc was already in there. And I remember when I came in, he was already playing Intelligence Cube.
Intelligence Cube. That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Did you eventually, because you had your own setup at home eventually too, right? Once you got your PlayStation and played this
Yeah.
game?
Hmm.
Awesome. Will you also, sorry to make you do this twice, will you tell me what the room was like at your house where you mostly played this game?
Yeah, it's the room on the other side of this wall, actually.
Oh, no way. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
We're
had
both doing
the
this from
from
our childhood homes. It's
yes.
amazing.
So there was a giant. We used to have a giant Mitsubishi TV.
Mm.
And you would sit the whatever console you were playing at the time. You would plug it in. There was a little, the not coaxial. What are they called? The red, white, and yellow plugs.
AV cables?
AV cables.
Yes.
You plug it right into the front because the TV was
Yep.
so big. There's no way you're gonna pull it out every
Yes.
time. So you plug it into the ones on the front of the TV, and you just sit down and you play it
Dude.
right there. And that's how it was either that or my parents used to do shift work, so we would go to my grandparents' house a lot,
Uh-huh.
and so we would take it with us over there,
Oh,
and we would
wow.
play it on their TV
Oh my
from time to
gosh.
time too. So yeah,
Yes. Okay.
that's the ways that I used to play my PlayStation.
I love it. Thank you for taking me back to those different spaces. When you think back to that time too, whether it's broad or specific, do any memories come to mind? And yeah, either something just, oh, I generally was kind of doing this when I was this young, or I remember
Mm.
this day.
Does anything? What was I doing at that time?
I'm sure watching cartoons and playing games like we talked about.
Yeah, I mean that was honestly probably the majority of my existence at the time. Um, yeah, I mean I was probably 8 or 9 when I got
Hmm.
my PlayStation, so I would have. Oh, I think I had just started martial arts at the time.
Oh wow.
So that would have been the big event that would have been going on
Hmm.
outside of games for me. Um, and yeah, just I mean, other than that, living life, doing kid
Being
stuff,
a
going to
kid, yeah.
school.
That's
Yeah, being a
great.
kid.
Do you have any like specific memories of times that surrounded playing this game? It could be a memory from like a moment in the game, or it could be like, oh, I remember this day I was playing and this event happened. And the specifics, no pressure to remember either of these. I just figured I'd pry.
I remember. I remember when DDR was huge. Dance Dance Revolution for um those who
Anybody at
don't
home who
know.
didn't know that?
Right. Which is also another major rhythm game
Yes.
that was out at the time. And Konami, who made the game, they made a version specifically for PS1 of like some little compilation of different tracks and some that were exclusive to that game.
Okay.
And I remember while we were big into that, um, my folks got us one of the little cushion like plastic dance mats,
Yes.
and we used to play on that a lot when we were playing DDR. And then they had the two-player mode, so one of us we only had one mat. So one of us would be me and my brother. One of us would be on the mat, and one of us would be on the controller,
Oh, no way.
and trying to do that and play against each other.
That's so funny.
So that would probably be a significant thing around that time that I remember.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
That's great. Well, dude, before I have you like put a bow and wrap up your thoughts about PaRappa, are there any other little details about the game that you haven't shared today that you'd like to get out there before we wrap up?
Um, I mean, I honestly just I adore this game.
Hmm.
It is such a formative experience for me as a game, but on its own merits as a work, like as a project or a game itself, I think it's an excellent game. I feel like it was developed to be a potentially arcade experience, and that's why
Oh,
it's so short, just because of the nature of it, and the way that it's stage by stage, and it's there's a chance for you to fail, and then just like an arcade game, you would have put more credits in to play it, just in case, but maybe Sony came in and snatched it up at the last minute. Um, yeah, no, I think this game is very important, um, not only to me, but to, well, I guess what used to be the ethos for PlayStation was that they used to run the gamut for video games. They used to be able to find something for everybody
hmm.
on a PlayStation console, and I think that was all the way up until PlayStation 3, really,
Yeah.
where they weren't afraid to have something like The Last of Us, or have something like a Katamari,
Yeah.
or something like that, and both of them be on the same system and
Hmm.
get the same amount of love and push from Sony as any other projects.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me is a important piece of PlayStation DNA, and why they are as big as they are now is because they had
Yes.
that philosophy at the start. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think this came up a lot when talking about Astrobot, but seeing all the franchises and the properties that we just don't see anymore that used to be so celebrated and given a platform by PlayStation, it was just a reminder of how things are just very different now of what they have focused on.
Hmm.
I mean, you and I know this. We talk about games all the time. It's just a very different era than back then.
Yep.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like with sharing those final details, do you feel like you got to wrap up your thoughts, or is that, yeah, that's the last question for you.
I mean, yeah, I could definitely go, a lot more in depth, but for sake of time,
Cool.
um, if anybody ever wanted to ask me about it, I'm sure I'll give my socials later, and I'd love to talk your ear off.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah, no, this game is it rules. I'll
Awesome,
just leave it
dude.
there.
I love it. Well, Adrian, we've got a couple of post-show segments that we'll do before we go, but dude, thank you so much for bringing on PaRappa the Rapper. I'm glad I finally got to hear from somebody about it.
Of course, of course.
All
I
right, well,
I will take any opportunity I can to talk about this game. So,
awesome, dude. Well, to close things out, we're going to get into the patented post-show segments. Not patented, I don't know why I said that. That's a lie. The first of which is the Fact Me by Your Game segment. And Adrian, this is just where I'm going to share a fun fact with you about the game itself. And I had to do a little digging for this one. I'm sure you know the YouTube channel Did You Know Gaming?
of course.
Dude, for some reason, I thought for sure this would be a game they had a video on. They don't have a video on PaRappa. It's usually where I go to first when I'm looking for these fun facts. But this, after I did watch a couple other fun YouTube videos that just weren't giving me what I was looking for. But I do have a fact for us today. This, coincidentally, just sourced from the Wikipedia page for the game itself. And let's go ahead and scroll down here. I have this titled Pop Culture References because PaRappa the Rapper has been referenced a couple of times, both directly and indirectly, in pop culture, and I'll share that right now. The game itself, PaRappa the Rapper, was featured as a challenge on the video game-based show Games Master in 1998. I've never heard of this show.
Nor have I.
So there's plenty we can look up about it, but it was featured as I guess they did different challenges they did challenges with different video games on the show, and it was featured once. But I would say the most interesting one I found was that the game was also referenced in the Rocket Jump web series called Video Game High School, which I never watched, but even just reading the title, I was like, oh, I remember hearing about
I remember
this.
that name. Yeah.
Yeah, just something that totally passed me by, which is weird because I feel like I was probably like in smack dab in the middle of the Venn diagram of people who'd like this stuff. But basically, there's a character where the character Jenny Matrix is pressured into playing a level of in the show PaRappa the Opera during a talk show, where she then is basically doing an opera version of PaRappa the Rapper where they even have on screen like different visuals and words moving across as if she's performing an opera and doing the sort of, it's not really a call and response in the video. It's more of like she's just singing a song, like an opera song, but it was really silly and funny reference. I just wanted to say that this show aired from May 2012 and ended on November 17th, 2014. So the show's no longer on the air, but it was Video Game High School. Shout out to that show.
I'm sure it's not hard to find.
Yeah, I think it's still out there. That's it for the Fact Me by Your Game segment, and I will lead us into the final one, the game recommendations. Now, Adrian, as you'll probably remember, this segment is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me by Your Name, where I am going to treat PaRappa the Rapper as your passionate summer fling that you met in Italy, but unfortunately, like the movie, it's not actually going to work out. So while you're heartbroken over losing PaRappa, I'm going to try to set you up. Get you back out there on the dating scene. And I've got 3 potential new flings for you today. Are you ready to hear them?
I am.
Okay, I love to hear that. We're already in such a good place for this. So all of these 3 games recommendations that I have for you today, I'll have a little something in common with PaRappa, and I'll list those now. If you want another rhythm game, but Adrian, you want a little more touching on that, we're going to go ahead and recommend a game I already know you love, and that's Rhythm Heaven.
Oh, another one close to my heart.
Easy
man.
sell for you on the DS.
Of course.
I want to say you've even taken this in did you take this in both the Nintendo Space Solace and the DS Space Solace?
I'm very sure I did.
I think you did. So anyway, had to reference that one on your episode today. The second recommendation for you today is that if you want another rhythm game, but cool isn't your thing anymore like PaRappa, you actually want to get in line with cringe, I'll go ahead and recommend Trombone Champ. Did you ever touch this game from a couple years ago?
No, but I've seen plenty of gameplay about it. I've been meaning to give it a shot. It looks hilarious.
It does.
Have you played it?
I've never touched it, but it seems like a game that I would love to play at a party. Give different people a shot. It seems like a really fun social game. And that's your second recommendation. The final recommendation for you, Adrian, really had to think outside of the box with this one. in the game we were just talking about, and some may even say that I forced in the reference to the episode of PaRappa's love interest, Sunny Funny, the flower who is the girl that he's in love with. We remember her? Okay, great. Well, if that was the thing that you took away most from the game, is that you are just looking for another fling with another flower, and you want one that is taken to the extreme, then I'll go ahead and recommend a game, Conker's Bad Fur Day, where you can meet a sunflower with body proportions I've never seen a plant have, Adrian. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to.
I know exactly what you're referring to, my good man.
Yeah, so if your big takeaway from the game was you have the just you got a crush on Sunny Funny, I'll recommend Conker's Bad Fur Day, and we'll just see what happens. But Adrian, your three recommendations for today were Rhythm Heaven, Trombone Champ, and Conker's Bad Fur Day. That'll do it for this segment, and that'll actually bring us to the end of the show. So, dude, before we go and plug whatever we want, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to return to the podcast. You're one of my favorite people to talk about video games with, so thanks for doing it, buddy.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you for having me. Like I said, I never waste an opportunity to talk about this game in particular, but any game that has had an incredible impact on me.
Nice.
As far as finding me on the internet, I am any and everywhere at Homeboy. That is HOLMBOI. And you can also find me again as part of the Super Gamer Boys podcast. That is on twitch.tv/the Super Gamer Boys and youtube.com/Super Gamer Boys.
I love it. I will go ahead and just close us out with a series of plugs of my own. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. And a reminder that anything that Adrian or I plugged, they're going to be in the show notes. So just scroll down and look for the list. You don't even have to search him. But Glenn, you can find his Instagram at Glenn with 2Ns.JAY to see the other cool art that he makes outside of the cover art for the podcast. The show is produced, edited, and the original music that you'll hear throughout is done by the great Jeremy Schmidt. If you want to thank him for all the great work he puts into this show, you should check out his podcast that both Adrian and I have been on too many times to count. That is Video Games, a comedy show. Again, wherever you get your podcast, you can follow the show, Call Me By Your Game, all over social media on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Definitely follow us on YouTube if you don't already. We release a video version of these episodes every single week. And if you think we sound cool, wait till you see how cool we actually look. You can also follow the show, or the network, at Super NPC Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. I am found on all sorts of social media platforms, including Twitch, which I always start the year off pretty hot, streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/consiscool69, where you can come watch me play both Stardew Valley, you can watch me play Control, and maybe some other stuff that I feel like getting into. And lastly, is that if you like me, you made it to this part of the podcast, and you liked the things that I talk to people about video game wise, check us out on patreon.com/supernpc radio. That's where, if you support us, even at the free tier that we have bonus video game podcast episodes that come out every single week. Depends on the tier you're at, so find one that works for you and that has like an offering that you're actually interested in and that is, affordable for you. But we have a ton of great bonus stuff, like the co-op series at the Engineer Toad tier, the Games Club at the DJ Toad tier and above, and then a back stock of episodes at the lower tiers as well. So if you're interested in that, check it out there. I also wanted to say that on the Patreon this year, and truly just on the network in general, it's kind of appropriate that Adrian brought on PaRappa the Rapper, a PS1 classic, because this year on the network, we're going to be celebrating the PlayStation's 30th anniversary all year long. We've got some bonus stuff that's going on Patreon. We have some streams that we're going to be doing on Twitch, and we have some special episodes going to be airing all throughout the network, including some appearances from some of your favorite PS1 characters on Video Games, a Comedy Show. Sure, it's going to be a little crazy. But if you love the PlayStation, give us a follow everywhere. You're going to see a bunch of fun stuff this year. But without further ado, that'll do it for this episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.